Okay, let's get up and racing, guys. Ready and raring to go. Hope you all had a good weekend. We're still waiting for a few more coming in slowly, so they can catch up anyway. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. I know I've been a bit busy. We're moving house, so trying to clean this place up is a bit tedious with the two kids running around, snapping at your heels. So that's kept us busy, and that'll be, I think we move out next week. We're going to a new place, so settlement's on the Monday, so it'll be all good, all exciting for us here anyway. So it's kept us busy all over the weekend. The markets, I don't know, most people obviously saw the markets on Friday night. They were up quite strong. They did quite well. So the Dow kicked on high. We got the S&P, which is the two we're following. They're kicking on really strong. So the S&P is the broader market. I think 500 stocks on that index, whereas the Dow's the top 30, I think, if I'm correct. Now they're kicking into new highs. They're just continuing to chug along. Thought our market might have been a bit stronger today. Not so much. So we follow the SPY at night, your SPY futures market, which is a good barometer of where the ASX is going to open. They didn't do a lot after the 5 o'clock open. So the 4:30 close during the day session. So they didn't do a hell of a lot overnight on Friday. They just sort of went sideways, but held their gains, which was quite nice. Thought it might have kicked up a bit today as the ASX open, but it's been up 5 or 10 points and backed off a bit. So don't know exactly where we are. We're only up a few points at the moment on the ASX, but it's still looking set. The US keeps dragging higher. We'll get dragged along with them. And yes, I think the FTSE's up near new highs. The DAX is into new highs. I don't know what they did. They had a relatively quiet session. This Catalonian problem they've got, so that sort of kept them a bit quieter Friday night. So we'll take a look at the ASX again, and we'll take a look at some of the positions we've got, some that we've closed out, which in hindsight we're quite happy that we did now. So we whittle it down a bit just to some more quality stocks that, obviously we'll relate it back to the XJO anyway in just a minute. So again, welcome to TradeSetup. It's a live stream. We've got the 23rd of October. Now, anyone that's new, join us on Twitter. You can see it in the top left-hand corner. As I know it, it's the Twitter handle. I'm learning these things as I go. Facebook in the top right-hand corner. So between the two, I'd be watching Twitter first and foremost. We follow that a bit more. We're sort of a bit more active on that. We tweet. It's a lot easier to do anyway. So that's a good one just to follow. Things that we think are interesting. You might tweet them through that you can keep an eye on. That might help with your trading and things. So that's good to watch there. Bottom right hand corner, you've got subscribe to us on YouTube. So you'll get a heads up anytime we do something live. All right, let's get into it then. I nearly forgot this. I will put my face up there. Bit rough and ready today. Sorry, guys. How are we all doing anyway? Market's up 7.5, so there we go. Who's out there today? I know, Helen, you're probably there. How you going, Helen? Paul, if you're not there, how are you anyway? How are you surviving there, Paul, anyway? How's the newie going, the newborn? I know it takes a while, just a bit of a catch up to what I'm talking about. Let's. So firstly, we'll kick it off with the XJO. We'll just take a look at that where we are. We're still below that 59.50, pushed up above 5900. So I'm going to go over to here, don't I? Now that's powered on quite strong, and you are getting a bit extended on the daily, but let's look at the weekly. The weekly's getting up there too, and we're just pushing into that 59.50, these highs. But I think the key one's there, that 6,000 level, which we could easily just punch up, like we said, just above 59.50, tag the 6,000, even just pop through it. It'd be interesting to see what we do if we fall short. It's not the greatest of signs, but if we actually pop through it and then pull back, it's always good. And then you can see that high-low builds, a bit like this on the longer term. What we saw here, push up towards just below that 6,000, backed off, bought in a lot more buyers. That would have washed out a few sellers too, caught them on the wrong side of the market, and now they're getting squeezed out with this market pop. So yeah, we'll just see if we can pop up through that 6,000 mark. Now, was going to say, it is, like I said, it's getting a bit stretched up here. I was just thinking about this before, as you do when you're making your coffee, ready to go, thinking about what I'm going to talk about. Years ago, I don't know if anyone knows my background, I was a broker for a few years, probably about 10 years, from about 2003, I think, to 2011. Then I went off on my own a bit, doing my own thing. But back then, I remember the guys, that's when I first got into market. I got into market through my old man. He was into it for years. And I went over to Japan for a couple of years, lived over there after my degree, and then got straight, rather than go into the degree, went straight into the markets, and I've been in there ever since. Really enjoy it. It's probably a bit of a family passion. Brother was involved too, but we were always told, not so much, not my father obviously, but the guys I worked with who ran the company said, you've got to pick a direction. And you're sort of sitting there thinking, well, you know, is that the more you learn, the more you find out just picking a direction. So I think it's going up, I think it's going down. It's quite tough. And we've spoken about this a few times, saying I would prefer to be sitting on the fence and let the market tell me which way it's going, not me to try to think, oh, it's going up and then just look for buying opportunities. I mean, because there's always going to be buying opportunities if you think it's going up and you're wrong. Yeah, because it always comes down, you buy it, and comes down, you buy more. And I knew these guys for a while, and I know that they've been caught quite a few times with that type of attitude. You know, picking a direction. I don't necessarily think you have to pick a direction, whether you think it's up or down. I think you trade what you see, but you have your mechanisms, you know, for getting in or getting out. So that, in that said, this is what we were talking about before. If you pick a direction, you think it's going to back off, and you go, okay, I'll wait. I'll load up when it pulls on a pullback. It'd be interesting to see how, you know, you've got to, if you do look at the market that way, you've got to have some reason why you're proven wrong. So you're going to know exactly what your plan is. So you've got to, in essence, plan well in advance. What would happen if this market went up? Am I going to miss out? What's going to happen? Am I going to miss out on some really nice gains if I'm waiting for a pullback and the market takes on without me? If you were just sitting through this chop like we saw, it was getting a bit choppy. We had a couple of good winners here, but we actually found it harder to put on some gains. You know, you'd pick up probably 0.5% a week, whereas we put on about 5 or 6% in the last week. So it's a big difference when the market starts moving in your favour, or even if it goes down and you're short. Same thing. So during this chop, I think you've got to have a plan. Say, okay, if I do think it's going down, okay, I'm trying to pick a direction. I'm trying to second guess the market in essence. But what if I'm wrong? You've got to know exactly when you're wrong and if you are wrong, what do you expect to see, and what's your plan of action? You're just going to sit there, sit on the sidelines, and not get into the market, not at least have a nibble, because the last thing you want is to see this market, especially now. This has got all the potential for this just to power through 6,000, just go on, and it can go. Markets can always get a lot more extended than what you think. What's that saying? The market, I can't remember now. There is a saying with regards that the market's got deeper pockets than what you think. Anyway, so the market can go on. This could just power through, especially after it's done nothing for this amount of time. You know, the last couple of months, it's done nothing, sort of chopping in there. So there's buying going there. It looked like it was going to roll over, and it's just turned on a dime, bang, straight back up. So if this powers on through 59.50 and takes out 6,000 in one foul swoop without that pullback, and you didn't have a plan of action right at the start, then you could be left well on the sidelines. It may pull back, so you get potentially a buying opportunity down the track, but you don't know when that's going to pull back. You don't know what's going to happen. And you're really just trying to second guess. So you're second guessing or trying to pick the direction has kept you out of the market potentially. Not for everyone, but like I said, if you didn't have a plan, probably has kept you out of the market. And that could have worked. You know, if you're buying through here, like we were saying, we were buying quality stocks with setups that were looking good. With the mindset there is if the market did roll over, we actually had we put a couple of shorts that looked good in that respect as well. So we had, what did we have? Telstra and Coke, I think it was at that time, when things were starting to look a bit shaky, and they actually worked out all right. And then we had a couple of longs that were working out all right, but it's about picking quality setups, you know, and not loading the boat, I guess you'd say, either direction, but just trying to hedge yourself a bit, but still being in the market. I think the key is trying to be in the market rather than jumping out all out. Because if you do see something, if this market at one stage is looking like it's rolling over and you see a really good buying opportunity, I wouldn't want to think that would let me keep me out of the market, because potentially if that's looking great and the market's not looking so good, there's probably a very good reason for that too. VJ, how are you, mate? Yeah, exactly. like VJ's. No, it was getting. We were expecting it to, with this little pullback, a bit of what we're talking about in the past. That little pullback, we thought, okay, key levels around the 56. It did pop up through this little minor anchor levels at 58. And then we thought this would have led to a higher low and then built this minor base, and that would have led us to a push up through 59.50 and 6,000. Because of what the US is doing, the US was kicking on strong. It didn't do that. It just basically went sideways. I think the longer it did that, the more likely it was looking like it was just going to roll over. And you could see that the pressure was starting to be added to the downside. You got these little lower highs just in here, and then another lower high here, and then you got this level held through 58, even with that little washout. Even here, we thought this lower high would have led to a bit of a washout of this level, but it kept getting held up around that 56.50 mark without taking out this previous low just below, what was it, about 56.30. So it kept holding up there, but it was holding those lower highs, and now that was looking like a bit of a short, and I think in hindsight that was more of a play to suck in those shorts. And we know at this stage, just when you got that little lower high here, I think the overall ASX, I think when you're talking futures and CFDs, it was around 70-something%, 73 or 4% short. So we all know the more people are loaded up on the one side, the more, you'll be looking for setups on the other side, because you know that if they get it wrong, there's a whole lot of fuel to push the market in the opposite direction. And that's what happened. So all those people who were shorting it through here without any real confirmation got squeezed back out of the market. But yeah, it was quite tight there, wasn't it? Yeah. No, you're right, Alan. If we can get... And it's looking... I mean, this is the thing. Even up here, if we saw a good quality setup up here when the market's just below this resistance, it looks like it's stretched. There's all these factors that, as an individual chart, this looks like it could roll over. There's no reason why you can't take a good quality setup too. Even if the ASX is stretched, it doesn't mean that individual stock is stretched. It could mean that you buy it, and it may go sideways a bit as the ASX pulls back, but then it could, if the ASX has that pullback and starts going again, looks more positive, that thing could rocket. So the last thing you always know where your risk is too, I guess is what we're trying to say. Oh, what's that on? Seller at 7775. If you don't know where you're trapped, then you are trapped. Exactly. If you don't know where you're trapped, you're trapped. Give up and get out. All right, so that was a bit of a rant on there. I remember these two guys in particular that, God, they'd always get on your back. So you got to pick a direction. You got to know whether you want to be a buyer or a seller. Now they're two of the worst traders I've known, to be honest. And I know that now after I've learned how to trade. When you're learning back then, you don't really, to be honest, you don't know what you're doing as a broker. But I didn't anyway. And once I learned, I got mentored, I think by Davin years ago. You start seeing things a bit differently. You start, you're understanding. You don't really try to pick a direction. You just try to say, okay, if this happens, what do I want to do? I want to be long. If this happens, what do I want to do? I want to be short. That's all you got to worry about. And if you do get short, where do I get out? When do I get out? When am I forced out? And then you try to rinse and repeat. Just do that over and over again. And that way, I think you're with that type of mindset. And going back to, if anyone remembers our Qantas trade, we're talking a bit of a rollover, sell, 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 sell. Then one day you just look at it and go, all right, let's take a step back. What does it look like now? It definitely doesn't look like a sell. It looks like it's going to turn into a short squeeze, meaning a lot of those sellers are going to get squeezed out of the market. And so we ended up buying it. And it's popped up, which is going really nicely. And it's still continuing to squeeze out some of those short sellers and really pressing higher. So yeah, it's always good to, I guess, what is it? Keep a foot in either camp between bears and the bulls and bears. It just keeps you with the right mindset, I think. And you start seeing it from you can stand back and start seeing the market for what it is, from the levels for what they are. You're not trying to read into them. You're not trying to put your ego into them. You're not trying to be, implement your bias, I guess, or push your bias onto the market. Either way, survivor's wisdom. Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's take a look at now the Dow. Look at that. That a lot of people might say that's a bit of a washout. I don't kind of believe it. I think you need a nice strong day, a couple of strong days, and then we'll have to see if that's starting to get stretched. We don't know. We're still getting through. We just started reporting season, so I wouldn't expect anything to happen too much until we get to the tail end of that reporting season, and see what I guess the outcomes have been for the overall stock market in the US. Now, another thing they were talking about in the US. Anyone read about that? Just about Trump. He outlined, what is it, the budget for 2018. So everyone's read into that as it being good for a future tax, but there's a lot to get through before tax reform. I don't understand politics as much, but you get the upper house, the lower house, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot to get through before that. And this thing, just because he's outlined that, and it's a step towards a tax reform, doesn't mean he's anywhere near it really. So the market's has a bit of a run up on the back of that talk. Finished positive for the week, but then again, it doesn't take much to kick it in that direction, kick the market up, and you're always going to get people that are going to chase it high if they're missing out, or just hear some sort of news, the market ticks off a few points, they chase it up. So it's not hard it's hard to turn the market when it's it's this bullish. So it'd be interesting to see what actually triggers it off, whether it's just a wave of selling. But also we've spoken a lot about the bonds. Remember, we've talked about the bonds. You get higher cost of funding, and the US bonds ticked up as well, which I found a bit more interesting. So the yields are kicking up a bit, which, if that's your cost of funding, the banks are doing better. So the banks have kicked up on Friday night on the higher yields, but what it means for company borrowing and stuff, it's going to be a bit of a tighter, so they can't, obviously, borrowers left, they can't leverage up as much. It's going to cost them more money. So the results, down the track are going to flow onto, gains, growth, company growth. It's going to constrict them a bit more. So if that's the case, throw into the mix rate rises in the US, which is going to kick things a bit higher, is going to make the bonds kick off a bit as well. I think that could be a bit of and there might be a lot of people looking for, like we said before, chasing yield, probably looking to come out or flow out of equities down the track. I don't know if it's going to be savage as what a lot of the bears think. It's going to get this massive correction. And they've all been out of the woods for quite a while, and they've been calling it wrong for a long time now. So a lot of the bears. We'll just see how that plays out. Anyway, we've got the S&P. Same thing. It's going well. Nothing to worry about there. FTSE's just consolidating around the highs there. I think they've got something on Brexit over the weekend, or it might have been on Friday. Had a little bit of a win for, is it May? Prime Minister May of the UK. So I think they were going nowhere, those talks, for a while. And then she's had a little bit of a win, which gave the pound a bit of a push higher, even though the US dollar was higher. So that's going all right. DAX, last one. DAX, holding around that 13,000 mark. So that's all-time highs too. So they're going along nicely as well. It'd be interesting to see if they just hold this level or they kick on up. I mean, that weekly chart looks great. That looks like it's bound for continuation higher. It is getting a bit extended up there, and the daily's sort of hovering around that extended mark. Again, nothing to say we can't keep on going with it. All right. If you can tell, I've had a few coffees now. Oh, by the way, I'm going to have to finish around the 125 mark. I have to race out before 1:30 and get my little boy. So, Mum's working today. She put her hand up for a few more shifts. So, she's a teacher. She's filling in for something anyway. So we're going to race out, get him just at 1:30. So I'll keep my talking to a minimum, and we'll look at more charts and some stocks in a second. So what I want to go through quickly, actually before I go, look at this one, DCC. This is one I've just taken a bit of a look at before. Look on the weekly. I mean, it's been hanging around this level for a long time now. It's done nothing for 14, 15, 16, 17, nearly 4 years. And you can see the market's been heading down. And we got down to the start of June. It was this year. And we had that little kick up, and then we pushed back down, built a high low, and then a race up through 10. So that push up through 10 was probably a bit more manipulated. So it'll be interesting to see if we can hold this higher level and start working our way up through 10 again. As we've spoken about before, when they play that 10-cent level a lot, they'll kick it up and then just sell it. They'll be buying at 8, 9 potentially. So you get it in 0.01 increments, and then it pushes up and it starts at 0.5 cent increments as it goes from 10, 10.5, 11, so on. So it looked like that was that play there, and it's backed off, but it's still holding that high low around 5.5. So this one actually doesn't look too bad. I don't know what they do. I just happen to look at the chart. They do blockchain-based software solutions group disrupting the global payments industry. Sounds promising. So just keep an eye on that one anyway, DCC. Now, two that we decided, so we had a bit of a culling last week on the alerts, only because of where we are on the overall ASX. You know, getting a bit extended. Generally, after a good run, and we've had a good run on our alerts, the portfolio basically went from about 9 positions. We're down to 6 now, and we've locked in a lot of these gains that kicked off quite nice. So we just took a bit of the risk off because the market is in that sort of 59-50 zone. Good to have something in the bank there, book a few, but it's also important to have something running because if this market consolidates these highs or has a minor pullback and then holds a higher level, then we'd be looking for some really nice setups again. Those ones we got out of, we could potentially get back in, but it's always good if it does drop like a stone for whatever reason. We booked some gains when our stocks were looking a little bit stretched. So two we got out of which were pretty much going nowhere. I don't know if you remember B&O. Probably haven't spoken about it much purely because it did nothing. We got in somewhere around, we got in at 46 on this little spike here. Saw the high for the next 2 months, which was fun. And we saw it just chopping around. We got this last little push up and you can see it did this spike up and then it got sold off, had a lower high and then held a higher low just in here with regards to where we had our stop down here at 42, I think, at that stage. And then it had another push up, thought it was going to go on with it then, and got sold off pretty heavily in a couple of days. So that's not good price action. Didn't like that. Held around this level again. The market sort of consolidated around that 46.7 mark. Had a push up, took a couple of days to get there, and see in one foul swoop or 2 days, bang, straight back down to 46. So really didn't like that at all. So rather than just sit around waiting for it, that price action was starting to look a bit heavy. And if you go over to the weekly, you can see there's a key level through that 50, and we popped up through it when we got in, when we entered, and it didn't go on with it. You would have thought a strong market was going to, or a strong price where buyers are really starting to take control, it was going to kick on through 50, but it just couldn't get there. And after you had a couple of attempts through here, and then you got this little lower high at, say, 49.5, all right, time to call it a day on that one. Closed out pretty much at break even. We got out at 46 where we got in. Just happy to take that. And look, in hindsight, that's... If it can't get through there, you probably think that there's going to be a few buyers flushed out, and we were probably part of that group. Going to get flushed out if this thing's going to build for a move higher. And potentially could, you know, we could be pulling back a bit further around that 40 mark and then start chopping around there and then start holding a higher low, which could mean that we get another nibble at it and see if we can get up and through 50 again. But if it doesn't set up, it doesn't set up. But I'd rather be out reassessing it, been sitting there waiting. We would have been stopped out now anyway. So that was one that we culled from the system to keep it break even. And the other one was AUB. If anyone was following us on this one, we had... was looking okay through here. I actually didn't mind it, especially the longer term chart. Whoop. You can see that longer term chart had that nice little push up. This price action's really worked to push a few of those late buyers out on this less leg up here. You can see they get put back on the sidelines. So we started holding these high lows right up into new highs. In hindsight, on the weekly chart, might have been a bit late to get in. May still be a bit late, or it might still work out. We got in with this little push through 13, not 13, 18. And again, it just failed, and we got this big red candle, which really, this big red candle I didn't like at all. Oh, it's actually after this one, we got that green candle, we got doing okay, and then boom. Wonder what happened there. The second day after, wonder what was happening. Expecting to get stopped out. I think we missed it by a cent or two at 12.50. It might have got the 12.53 on this green candle. Started picking up again, but we did get the dividend, and we managed to get out just above around 13.09. So net all up, including the div, it was above break even. So we booked a small gain there, but this one looks, you can see that's looking like it's developing that lower high. Nothing's confirmed just yet, but I'll be happy again. I'd be happy to be on the sidelines on this one. I don't see this as a quality setup now, especially after the sort of this didn't lead to a push up through the highs at 14. I would have expected that to happen if this market was going to continue strong, and I was, you know, my plan of attack started playing out, but it went against to what I thought. So I'd rather be culling that and looking for something that's got better opportunity with better potential anyway. But they're the two. Any questions there, guys, on what we have done on those? We've got our others are kicking on quite nicely. Tor, booked that 37.5. That's going nicely. Want to see if that can kick up, give it an opportunity anyway. See if it can push up to that 45 mark would be great, and then we'll have to decide because that'll be well and truly stretched by then. MGE, that's the US based Magellan. Got it. There you go. So that's kicking up all right. That's because the US had a good night Friday. They picked up, but just sort of struggling again at this, was it 288 mark? Hit 288 today. It's trading 286 now. I want to see if they can push up through that 290 mark. If we can get it up towards that 295, might just see if we either take it off or happy to hold it because it's actually looking quite good. It's just a really slow grinder, really slow mover. We've got in that 280, it's 288. We're only up 2.8% at the moment, or 2.7%. So we'll see. The other one can do quite well. That's good. That's kicked on a bit nicer. We've managed to take a partial on that at 139, and that again, that was more to do with coming to resistance. The chart was after these couple of red candles. Didn't like this move, but then it held up. So happy to take a profit. I mean, it's always good to book it if you don't, if you're not even 100% certain on what you expect to happen or what you think's going to happen, you're better off to play it on the safe side and book gains when you've got it, especially if it's a good one. That was on Can. What did we get on that? That's a 12% gainer on that little squirt there, and it's up about 20% now from entry at around 124, just through here. So that's going along nicely. We'll see how long that can kick on. Qantas, we've taken a partial on this pickup, push up through 650. Took a partial. That looks like it's going to continue on. Continuing to squeeze those sellers out. Could still go a lot further. You can see that could spike up a bit more. But again, happy to take your profits into some strength. And if you get it wrong, it keeps going, so be it. But if you get it right, you'd be happy. RMD, that's looking good. That's ResMed. That's 9 something we got in on that one. Below $10, about 9.98, I think. 9.94. 9.94 on that. That's looking great. That longer term structure is looking nice. I think buyers are well and truly in control on that, especially if it gets through this inside level on the week. That's a weekly and a daily inside level, just at 10.16. If it can push up through there, I'm expecting it to go straight through these highs at 10.43. And I think if that's the case, it's just going to, we may get, it'd be nice to see this little power play, really kicking on, extending through 11, and then we'll get an opportunity somewhere around between now and then, if it does do that, to take a partial on that and see how it goes. APT, nothing much to say about that one. That's looking awesome. That's into new highs again, so we'll sit back and watch it now. And NCZ, which is the new one, that would look a little bit extended, but it's got some room to move, and it's been looking really good. And we know a few of the bigger companies are bigger. The stockbrokers are following it, and they got some good news on it. They like it, and of course, if they're a bigger player that's following it, they're pumping it out to their database. If it looks like a good buy, we're happy to give it a go. Know exactly where our risk is, because this one could spike up quite quickly. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we're up on those. So if I can keep going, I'll keep going. But otherwise, any questions, feel free to chuck in if you want to ask any questions. Put some codes into chat quickly, and we get through those before we knock it on the head. But yeah, anything you want to look at, put in the chat, even if it's a currency, no problem. There's a couple, while I'm waiting, remember, is it NRW Communications, NWR Communications, sorry, get the right way around. The stuff we've been talking about, they sent out that report, and they sort of follow a handful of stocks. They sort of a media company, and they've got some really nice ones to follow. Yeah, I know, Helen, bub. It's making me dribble. Get it? There's a little dad joke on that. So there's a couple there that I really like. NVL, I think they've got one on their list. We won't go through them today, but that's one. Oh no, it's not. LVH. That's one they've got a media coverage on, and that's going nicely. And if you look at that, if you want to look at something for setups and just mark it up and get used to seeing things, mark this one up, because it's You know, you've got this little expansion, then you've got this contraction lower, then you hold a higher low, entry. You know, it does the same sort of thing, and you've got maybe an opportunity in here, you've got an entry in here, the same sort of thing just in here. So it's good, you know, you've got entry after entry after entry. And another one just here through that 90 mark even. So if you're following this, if you like the idea of, if you like the idea, just seeing your comment, Alan. If you like the idea of building a position, obviously this has got a good story. They're doing some good things. It's getting followed by a good, and the coverage, what they're doing is putting out coverage on it. They've got some good follower base. So it's always good to see what's on their list, to see what's moving. And if you like it from a technical point of view, or if you do your, I guess, due diligence and like what it's showing, what the fundamentals are saying and the technicals, and you're happy to buy into it, you know that they're probably getting out to a bigger audience. So you know there's potential, a nice pool of buyers out there ready to, you know, for fuel to push that market higher or push that stock higher. So it's good. This one's a great one as a good example of you either go all in or you just let things run. And there was, you know, you had many different entry opportunities on this. You had, if you like this one as a longer term play, you had many areas where you could add to your position and build. And it's a good example if you just mark it up and just keep it one for the, I always do anyway. I've got a folder on my computer on the desktop of just charts that I like and entries that I like. So you can just flick through them every now. If you have a bit of a bad spell, like you're bound to, if you haven't already, you'll get a spell where you just do nothing and nothing's quite working. It's a good thing just to go through these things and get you back on track in case you've deviated from your plan or what you do. It's a good reason. It's a good thing just to look at them and go, okay, hang a sec. My setups, I'm not seeing it wrong. I'm actually doing the right setups. I'm doing what I normally do. It's just not working out this time. I'm having a bit of a bad patch. Rather than looking at it and going, hang a sec, I'm looking at all this, you know, previous snapshot I've taken of good trades, of good setups, good solid setups, and looking at them going, like, I'm actually deviating quite a bit from what I used to do when I was doing well. And so that way, either way, it can either keep you on track of doing the right thing or get you back on track just by taking snapshots of, you know, stocks you like, setups you like, and just every now and then, just go through them, even if you're having a good time. All right, let's get into it then. If Bub, trust you to bring up one that I didn't get on. Whoa, crikey dick. That was only about 73 when we started the stream. Bugger. Bugger. So this was one we sent out an alert on, probably last week, I'd say. And I will happily say I'm spewing on this one. So Bub. I'm just trying to find out what, if I did send one out. Did you get onto this one, Helen? Or you did or you didn't? Or we spoke about this maybe. So that was the last alert. That was on the 11th. So it was about 10 days ago. So it was just here. Did like it off this support, but it didn't give me that higher low after breaking this level. So ideally, you know, if anyone doesn't know what I'm looking for, is that little pop up, take out a key level. This one really isn't one. This little, just go back to here. This little high is not really one. It's more of that level there, just through high 56. I wanted to see that bit of a pullback, build a higher low, or at least consolidate sideways rather than just grind higher, and then it's just gone boom. So it looks like they've had some good news. It looks like there's a few players that knew that was coming out in advance, and it's got a good kick. A good kick. What price are we talking, Helen? I'll take it at 60. Exactly, Michelle. 60 cents, done. As long as I can get out today, not T plus 3. Oh, I'll probably need the baby food the way I'm going. Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, cheap. All right, so that's a cracker, that one. Spewing on that. That's going nice. Remember the one we spoke about a while ago? WHA? Look at that one. The last alert was somewhere around 90. I was saying about 98. That's nearly 100%, close to 100% on that one. So that's it's good that I'm bragging about the ones I didn't take. All right, we'll do it off market transfer. All right, so that one's doing, that's waddle, that's going well. Now what else we got? FXJ, Luke, will do, mate. That looks pretty nice. Apart from this little gap down, so whatever it was, it looks like the news, and whether it's just going to close the gap to 110 and roll over. This is FXJ. Let's get away from that. Let's go here. I'm guessing if you go to the weekly, oh look, the weekly is looking okay. It's just sort of, it's pushed down to these lows. That was way back in 2012. It's been holding up, you know, pushing off those lows. It did a lot of way for a few years. Excuse me, a few years. It just consolidated from highs around that 110, 105 to 110 mark, just up here again, and around that 75 to 70 to 75 mark, or 70 to 80. These lows through here, and it's just started picking up going into 2017, so only a few months ago, and it got up to just below $1.30. Be interesting to see why. I don't know why it actually backed off in Fairfax. But yeah, so just be careful. I think right here, I'd say this is extended up. You can see this push up. It's taken a bit of effort to, from buyers' point of view, to really press that market up, and it's nowhere near those highs at 120. So for me, I'd like to see if you can hold this through this 92. If that's going to be confirmed as a higher low, you want to see a bit of a pullback and build maybe a higher low around the $1.02, something like that. If you can build that higher low, then you're thinking it starts heading back up again. It's worth a bit of a stab at. Yeah, worth a bit of a play, because you know where your risk is going to be. You're not going to risk too much. You can see if it can push up to his 125 mark. At the moment, yeah, I'll be just on the sidelines, but this one definitely put it on the radar. TGR. Couple of days done good, haven't it? Hasn't it? Haven't it? Problem for me is it's just, this is either going to take a long time to play out. This is a weekly chart here. You can see it's through 2013, good push up, and that move down's washed out a few of these late buyers, you know, probably above $3. Washed them out. They started getting a bit nervous, and it's picked up and pushed up through the highs into new highs. Started 2016, where it then basically got a couple of weeks, bang, gave it all back up again. And then it's tried to push high, struggled, started coming down again. It's holding a higher low here, and then pressed back up into that $5 mark. So it's essentially at that double top up there. Then you got your lower high, and then we're pressing down into this just below 375. So we're hitting that higher low again. So it's starting to look, for me, and you can see this move up on the weekly. This recent move up, well, that's not what I want to see. Well, let's just go back to all. This recent move up here is taking a bit of effort. So it's getting to that overextended mark, but it's getting nowhere near these highs around 475. So it's taking a fair bit of effort, which to me is looking a bit more negative than anything. So going down to the daily, even though it's got a couple of good days here, this could just be, you know, a bit of capitulation to the upside and then roll over, hold a lower high. It's got the makings of potentially doing that. It doesn't mean it's going to. But as a buyer, to be honest, I probably think there's a few more out there that could be, you know, a better place to put your money. In essence, what I'd like to do, I'd rather see that high low hold. I'd rather see it, again, what it's done is just confirmed there's a bit of buying out there. I'll draw it up for you there, John. I do this all the time, don't I? So what it's done, you can see that it's more sort of just pushing through that. That's a technical pattern. There's nothing to say it can't push up. You know, it's gone up and then just start holding lower high, and then bang, down we go through these lows, because the weekly is actually looking a bit of a struggle at the moment. You've got this market's pushed up here. It's corrected lower. It's had a good push up, but then it started failing, and it failed. This was heavy selling. So whatever's caused that, it's trying to hold up around that 370 mark, but this is not conducive as a strong market. These little, it may be a bit of a base, but I just don't believe it. I think if this market's strong, we shouldn't have seen this heavy selling. And this, if this played out up at say 440 level, to me is much stronger. It looks much better, but the fact that it's got heavy selling down to a support level, a minor level though, at 370, and then it's looking like it's struggling to lift off. Only the last couple of days it's looking okay. That to me is more negative, and I'll be looking for a lower high more than anything else. But if it's a buying opportunity, you want to see this sort of push up, flush out a few people on a move back down, but maybe down to a 4. You get these 1-2 legs down, and then you want to see a high low hold. And if we can just get that high low hold, it gives you a buying opportunity and to know exactly where you're going to put your risk. And what that'll do is also drag in a few buyers that are not convinced by this recent move up, potentially like myself. higher lows where you got evidence of buyers stepping in for a second move up, and generally that's going to give you a lot more bang for your buck, if that makes sense. And you could potentially get it pushed back up to these highs at 450, 60, just in here, and then you got a 2-to-1 trade there at the least, and you know exactly where you can put your risk. Gives you an opportunity to where if you do get it wrong, you've got something in your bank. Does that make sense there, John? FXJ, corporate action. Yep. OSH. Probably not going to get through all these, but we'll try. Whoop. One still. Longer term, it's caught in this sort of rubbish between lows at 625 and sort of that 775 mark. The reason why I don't like this is a couple of small reasons on the weekly chart only. Actually, there is a reason. Oil certs. What did I call it? One steel. What a goose. Who's that? Alan. The reason why I don't like this, if I can find my little tool again, is mainly before we have a look at the weekly, so the daily, you can see that clearly. So what we've got this move up here. The market's come down, and that's washed out a lot of these buys. Good reaction up here. And you can see by that reaction, it's starting to hold that $6 level. And at that stage, it wasn't looking too bad. It's just that it's also holding lower highs. You can see clearly that 1, 2, 3 touches on 775. And then 770 is a lower high again. And you've even got a little wash out of that level. And you can see that price action. At that stage, it was starting to grind high. You got a little wash out of that level. And then we've broken down and through. So this, to me, especially where your stochastics are on the weekly, it's taken a lot of effort to get it from 625, say, up to 725 a buck. A lot of effort, a lot of strong buying, but it's been met with stronger selling because you've got a potential for it's going to hold a lower high again at 725. And after breaking down like that, trying to hold that, say, 630 mark just in here, it's looking like that could easily punch straight down. And then you've got this secondary, that's one big leg higher. That's sort of that consolidation. This could be the start of a major leg lower. I said that's your big leg lower. Consolidation, start of a potential, another leg lower. So looking at it from that perspective on the weekly, I don't want to go near it. And I think if you go onto a daily chart, look, your key levels to keep you out of trouble, I'd be watching it. Your key levels just to keep you out of trouble could be, I wouldn't buy that because it's stretched up here, you can see. I'll be looking, say, potentially through here. If it gets down through that sort of 690 mark, I think that's going to be a confirmed lower high compared to that 750, and then you've got another lower high. So there is pressure down on the downside. And then I would expect that to at least test down to 640, potentially lower. You don't know. So that is one steel ARV. Let's take a look at that. Jeez, I'm hitting everything today. Does that make sense there, Alan? Have I convinced you? You watch, I'll turn around and be wrong now. Now that, on the other hand, that's an uptrend. There's nothing much to be... Probably don't need... Oh, that looks nice. That's VJ. That's quite nice, mate. That's you can see the market's spent a lot of time doing nothing through here. Again, 3 or 4 years. And looking at this last price action, it started picking up. You can see that maybe the volume's picking up. The volume's definitely picked up since a few months ago. Picking up here. Increased volume after this type of price action. You got a little rush up, pull back as the increased volume. Sorry guys, just be a minute. Alright guys, sorry. A little girl bullying me again. So you can see that one looks nice. That weekly chart looks good. The daily chart's picking up, and then you've got this trend, this most recent move. The only thing potentially, you don't know how far that leg's going to go, so just by glancing at that, maybe it's a bit extended. But in saying all that, look where the stochastics, it's had a good sell-off down here. Good news. And it's holding at 28. So it is looking like it's going to get another little spike through that 34, was it 33 mark, 33 and a half. these recent highs and kick on again. So definitely that's one that's on its way up. What else we got? I think that's about it, isn't it? You got through that all right. What else we got? That's it. All right. Does that make sense there, guys? Just me rabbiting on there. So that one's quite nice. So it's definitely good to, and if you go back and look at that, was it LVH? You look at that in both the weekly and a daily. I mean, if you're looking at this in a weekly for confidence, that's everything. That's on its way up. So you know the weekly trend's up, so the longer term buyers are in. And then you're looking on the daily just for those little corrective areas. And then you're just looking for that weekly trend to continue as buyers keep stepping up to the plate. And that's what you want to see, both in your favor, rather than one looking like it's going to roll over and one looking like it's going to, you know, head high. That way you're sort of not caught in two minds. A lot of the time on the weekly, it could have had a good push high and then it's correcting down on the weekly. And then the daily starts looking good. It could be the start of a new longer term weekly leg up. So it is, and that can give you some really great opportunity too. That's to pick up my son, so only about 5 minutes left in me, guys, anyway. So does that make sense? So if you can, sometimes the weekly could be heading down, but it, in the scheme of things, it's just a weekly corrective. It's got to, and the market has to keep pushing people back out of the market. The stocks, you know, if they go up, have a good strong leg up. If they want to continue, there's no one left to buy. Remember, it's supply demand. No one left to buy, you're probably going to get those corrections, and then you're going to get people washed out of the market, pushed back in. Maybe people waiting on the sidelines for a better price. They're happy to start stepping into, so you've got that increase of supply ready to come back into the market. So the market has to keep going through those cycles to push, you know, push up, correct lower, push up, correct lower. Sometimes it gets to a certain point where it's done it too many times and people just go, okay, this thing's gone too hard, getting a bit overvalued, whatever reason, it's not worth the buy up at these levels. I want a major correction. Then you have to sort of sit around, wait. But basically, when you get those two, the weekly and the daily, going in your favour, it's always a good sign. And then when you get this sort of exhaustive action, when it really starts to spike high, that's a good sign too that we're getting the last of the people that got, to put it a different way, pissed off that they missed it here, are jumping in here, going, that's it, I'm getting in. And we've all probably done it in the past. I don't want to miss out, I'm getting in, and then sure enough, that's the high and it rolls over because you're just running out of buyers. So it's always a good sign just up here, for example, on LVH, that this could be getting ahead of itself, getting a bit overvalued, and then you might get a few people who have had it for a while start edging out, locking in some of those gains. Last one, ARF. We'll go through that, and then I'll probably just have to call it a day there, guys. I know I've looked at this. So going on the weekly, yeah, that's definitely, when forget about what's happened here. That's definitely on the way higher. So looking at this as an example, I don't know what the daily is going to show you just yet. The market's heading high. You've got a key level through here, $1.50, another key level through $1.70, where it's led to a high. It's just struggling to get up through those highs around 250, say, 245. This high just in here. It's holding higher lows, though, on the weekly. This is more inside price action, inside the high, above the higher low just in here. So it's sort of inside, and that could lead sometimes to a really powerful move up. You just got to check out what the days, but you know the weekly's in your favour. So if you get a nice little setup on the daily, which I don't think we've got just yet, but just to draw it up, what I'd like to see, let's just take it from here. So this is the high. All right, whoop. Right, so you got a level here. Yeah, it's a good little level through 205. You got the highs right up here at say 245. So these highs are starting, but it's the good thing is it's holding those high lows, which is always nice. For me, I haven't really seen the setup I like just yet. This could easily lead, you know, we've had a move down, pop up, move down, pop up. There's nothing to say this can't move down, but what you'd like to see from here is if that's going to be your high low to work off. You've had 1, 2 moves down. We're up here. That's the high low. That's a potential high low that we're concerned with. My mouse is getting grit on it. What I'd like to see from here is the market to build maybe a little contraction to build a confirmed high low just around that 220 mark potentially. If you get that, I think you're going to get a nice entry, and that's a major high low working in your favor along with those minor daily high lows. So you got the weekly kicking back in, the daily starting to kick back in. So there's a lot of oomph in your favor, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's what I'd ideally like to see, just what I've just drawn out in the red from here, just a bit of minor contraction, but holding some daily high lows, some inside high lows we call them. And I think that will turn around and start take out that level, you take out that level, and then essentially you're going to front run a move probably through that 245 to get that weekly continuation higher. Does that make sense? Zeng, is it? I hope that makes sense anyway. So I might have to call it a day there, guys. Any more questions? If I'm going to miss something, if I have missed something, feel free to email me through. Because I've got to finish it up, wind it up now. Feel free to email me through to support@tradesetup.com.au with any questions. Even if there's something you're not quite getting and you don't want to sort of bother putting it on the chat, just email it through. And then we'll go over it. Even I can bring it up to explain through the chat when we do another stream. I'll be back in on Thursday. And again, if you do appreciate it, like what we've been chatting about, my blabbering, feel free to like us, leave us a like at the end of the video. That'd be much appreciated. Otherwise, we'll see you again on Thursday. Cheers, guys. See you, Michelle. See you guys. Bye.